Well, hello and welcome to the new video, and this is another Mitsubishi ASX that I also tested previously with the petrol variant, but this is the hybrid engine. So as you can see, basically it's a Renault D-Tech. We just have a different badging and also different badges of a hybrid system, like here on the sides and then in the rear. So the car, as it is a Renault, is 4.2 meters long. We have a wheelbase of almost 2.7 meter, which is really quite good for the class. It's also a very nicely aero efficient car. As you can see, these inlets, so that's pretty nice. In terms of tires, this car is running 215/55 R18 tires, and the wheels of course are Renault, just with a different badge. The tires here, the winter tires, Bridgestone Blizzak, very good tires. One specific Mitsubishi option are these seals, which they are kind of pointless in a small crossover like this, but someone might like it for a design purpose. Anyway, here's the badge, a different badge, hybrid EV with a Mitsubishi look. We have a panorama roof, and going in the back, it's really nothing different, from a Renault. So yeah, only here in the rear, if we have a look, again, different badging, Mitsubishi written over. Instead of the Renault logo, there is a rear view camera and a different badge for the hybrid sign. Let's go into the boot, which is quite big, 536 liters, which it doesn't look now because it has double floor, but if you put it up or if you put it away, it's definitely quite deep and quite spacious, so that's good. This is another option that is specifically Mitsubishi, this rubber floor mat in the boot. Otherwise, the practicality, there's not much. You have lights and you have a couple hooks here. So yeah, now let's have a look into the rear. We have a 2.7 meter wheelbase, so let's try it, how it is to sit. And well, it's quite good actually. In all dimensions, I have enough space for the head. For the knees, it's just so right. This is not like plastic but rubbery, so it's not uncomfortable for the knees. And in terms of practicality, you have two USB-A ports, 12-volt socket, and the ventilation. Yeah, it's not bad at all. The only thing maybe in terms of practicality, this door bin is kind of small. So yeah, so let's have a look at the business end. Let's have a look at the hybrid system, which has just turned on to recharge the battery. Hang on. Okay, rather annoying way of opening the bonnet. You have to pull it to the side, which is kind of annoying. Well, anyway, this is the 1.6 hybrid, so we have 1.6 SC that was from Renault. In the past, we have 94 horsepower, 140 Newton meters of torque. Of course, thanks to the electric power, the total is around 143 horsepower and around almost, I think, 300 Newton meters. So yeah, it's an interesting powertrain, but from the experience of the test, it is not on par with the Toyota or Honda's one. Yeah, the fuel efficiency should be 4.3 in these winter conditions. With it sort of in the city, 6.1. So yeah, not too bad. Maybe the only other thing I want to tell from the outside and the driving perspective is the turning radius. The turning circle is quite bad actually. You need quite a wide road to turn around. Yeah, so anyway, but the car is about driving, so let's take it further down the road and let's drive the car. Well, hello and welcome aboard the Mitsubishi ASX. Of course I had to do this joke, as of course they landed this car as well as the Renault Clio from Renault. And so are there any changes in the interior? Well, apart from the badge here and apart from the Mitsubishi saying here on top of the screen, not at all. This is a complete Renault interior, and of course also the key fob has the Mitsubishi badge, as you can see. So yeah, but I think it's actually a good thing, because the past Mitsubishi ASX model had a dreary interior, and this Renault interior is much more better to look at. In terms of layout, it's much more easier to use. It looks, in terms of technologies, it looks much newer, much more technologically advanced. So I think it is actually a good thing. In terms of build quality, I'm actually a little bit surprised. I didn't know that this part can squeak as much as it did in this car. So yeah, but overall it's still much nicer. You have soft touch materials here on the dash, nice black sort of plastic wood that gives it a nice ambience in the interior. You also have ambient lighting here in the front door. So yeah, it's good. And in terms of sitting position, it's a Renault Captur. You're sitting quite high up. Yeah, so it's an SUV. It has this SUV-ish feeling, even though it's not a bigger SUV. And the thing I like about the interior, let me start the car, is that you have this start and stop system off on one click of the button, and then you can change modes also by the button, by pressing the button, not having to wander about in the settings of the infotainment. So I really like this interior. Anyway, let's go. Well, let's set off and let's drive. And well, I'm very glad that the ASX has this combination of the most powerful engine from the Renault Captur range. It's a 1.3 TCE producing 160 horsepower. 160 horsepower mated to 7-speed gearbox. Really actually great, because you never sense that you don't have enough power in the car, particularly in the sports mode. Also the gearbox, thanks to its horsepower, doesn't need to rev the engine, so at the motorway at 140 it does 2,500 RPMs, which is great. And it might lead you to the conclusion that it might have a good fuel consumption. Well, that might be true with the Renault Captur, and also this when you're not driving fast, but particularly on the motorway I found out that this car is not very economical. And the reason behind, I think, is the optional equipment that is not available with the Renault but only with Mitsubishi, and that is the side steps. The side steps that you can get to the car, a little bit unreasonable, I would say, but Mitsubishi, of course, they wanted to give it this SUV-ish feeling of their cars that they have. So yeah, and I think these things, they pick up so much air that it decreases the fuel efficiency of the car quite massively on the motorway. So right now I was driving very normally. It's not that windy day, even though it's cold and it was snowing. I was driving 130, 140, sometimes 150, and the consumption right now is 8 liters, which is quite a lot, I have to say. So yeah, not the most efficient, but then on the B roads you can drive for 5.4 liters, which is then quite okay. In terms of noise isolation, it's as good as in Renault. Of course, there is no difference. So 60 decibels at 130 kilometers per hour, really a decent acoustic isolation for leading the normal conversation. So quite good in this sense. In terms of suspension, it's quite a long time since I've driven the Renault Captur, but I have to say that this is a really stiff car. It feels very stiff. I'm not sure if Mitsubishi changed the damping, the bound and rebound in the damping, but it feels really maybe unnecessarily stiff for the category this car is at. Yeah, it just moves about. Of course, it's good for cornering and for maneuvers, although there is slight roll. Yeah, but it just feels on the bumps just unnecessarily uncomfortable, I have to say. So yeah, but then in terms of powertrain, I have to say I really do love the gearbox of this car, the 7-speed DCT dual clutch gearbox. It also has, as I've seen now, it has this gliding mode in the gearbox like the VW cars, which I don't remember it having when it first came out with the Clio and the Captur back in 2019 or 2018. So that is a good thing. And also, if you press the pedal for a bit, you can use it clearly only in the manual mode, and it's just so crunchy, this gearbox in the manual. It feels like very sporty. It reminds me when I had the Megane RS. It had this very sharp gearbox, very sharp, very fast changes. Also on the downshifts it was doing a little bit of a crunchy feeling, crunchy noises. So I do love that. Okay, let's try and overtake this truck up the hill. Or maybe not, there is a car coming. Yeah, so I really do like it. Like, I go down, immediately changes gears, and the pedals, they are very responsive. So it is quite actually a joy shifting manually through this gearbox. I do quite like that, I have to say. So yeah, but of course a lot of people at the moment, Mitsubishi fans particularly, and Mitsubishi SUV fans, so maybe not the proper Mitsubishi fans of the days of the Lancer Evo and the really exciting cars, they are not happy that that Mitsubishi borrowed this car and just rebadged it from Renault. But it actually, there is a sense behind it, because Mitsubishi is preparing their new strategy for electrification and the new models. So in the meantime, they really didn't want to spend any money just developing the cars that are going to be completely different later on. So they just borrowed from the group they are in. They borrowed the Renault cars, and they are pretty good cars. These cars are really good, also in terms of reliability, in terms of looks. So yeah, it makes sense they landed these cars. And actually, if you're coming from the older generation ASX, this is an improvement for you. Maybe only thing that is not is that it lacks four-wheel drive. So as a Mitsubishi owner, you maybe love a four-wheel drive system, but this is only a front-wheel drive car. Yeah, but look, it's very drivable. I really do love the gearbox. And then when you put it enough down and you put your foot down, this 160 horsepower has enough dynamics. It's just pulling very nicely, it has to be said. When you're overtaking, when you have a full car of your family, it just has enough power for every occasion. So yeah, I have to say it's very decent. But I don't quite remember Renault Captur to be as hard, to have as harsh of a ride as this car. So that leads me to the likes and dislikes of this car. So the first dislike would be, I would say, the ride, because it lacks this sort of comfortability at the end of rebound that the Clio and the Captur I remember they had. This is like very, very harsh, a little bit harsher than them. A little bit, it feels at times, it feels when you're going on a bumpy road that you have a wooden suspension, you know. So yeah, that would be the first negative. Then another negative, I would advise you to stay away from those side steps. They really pick up air, they really increase the fuel consumption, and there is no point in having them. You don't have a tall car, you don't need them to get inside the car. So it's really unnecessary to pay for them. So I would advise you to stay off them. Yeah, but otherwise, well, no, I really don't have much negative saying about this car. Of course, for Mitsubishi fans, then it lacks this four-wheel drive system. That might be a negative for them. And funnily enough, this car and this specification comes at more expensive than the Renault Captur, which I don't think from Mitsubishi's part is a good strategy. If they borrow the car, they made their fans a little bit angry by that, they should at least sell the car for a lower price and not more expensive. So yeah, these are the dislikes. But then the likes, as it is a Renault Captur, you know, it's just a very well refined car in the interior. There is actually quite loads of space, even though you're sitting quite high. But you still have quite a decent amount of space above your head, also in the back. So it's very decent. It's reasonably quiet. It has reasonable amounts of horsepower and Newton meter to pull you in any situation. The steering is very nice and very direct, very nicely weighted, and particularly in this case I really do love how the gearbox is working in this car. It's very fluent in the traffic jam or coming away from the red lights, and very crunchy when you're using in the manual mode. It also behaves nicely in terms of fuel efficiency, so it puts this car into the gliding, into the neutral going down the hill. So it's a really good gearbox. I really do advise you to take this gearbox, this engine combination. Really great. Yeah, so I think that would be it to the Mitsubishi ASX. You can feel as you wish about the car, but the truth is it's not a bad car, and Mitsubishi, they knew why they borrowed it from Renault, and they obviously have their own plans for the future, and this is just a stop for some time, so they have something to sell you. So yeah, that would be it to the Mitsubishi ASX. This one that I have for the test, let me start it. As you can hear, or actually not hear, is a hybrid. So this is basically a Renault E-Tech powertrain. That's what it is. Just we have some badging, some pictures here and there of the Mitsubishi. Like here, if I switch the modes, I have a Mitsubishi ASX here. So I'll just tell you, you have MySense, Sport and Eco, and I didn't know before that in this normal hybrid there is also an e-save mode, which probably turns on the engine. But anyway, let's try and get out of here, from the garage. So, is there anything coming? No. All right. Well, it's definitely a nice thing having a hybrid, that in an underground garage like this it is incredibly quiet. Also on the streets, just very relaxed, moving like this very slowly, not eating up any petrol while being in a traffic jam. That's definitely the advantage of a hybrid powertrain, and it is a very nice thing to have day to day. Now, I only driven this car in the city conditions. I might be able to get out of the city towards the end of the week, so I will put the, hang on, now it's the time. Okay, I don't need to put in the cart. That's a huge relief for me at the moment, as I have camera there, as you can see. So I will put the screenshot of the fuel economy, but driving all the week in the city at the moment it's 6.3. And now, to be honest, I was expecting it to be a little bit better, being a hybrid. I think this E-Tech hybrid of this first generation with this 1.6 engine is just not working quite the best way. And the 1.6 engine itself, that is charging the battery at times, is not the most efficient thermic engine that exists in the world. So that's why, and also probably because it's winter, so we have cold engine, cold battery, a lot of short drives. So these are the reasons why probably the fuel consumption is not in the likes of 4-5 liters, but 6.2, 6.3. But it's still a very efficient car. So yeah, that's a pretty good thing. It also has quite a big tank. I think it's around 50 liters, which, being a hybrid, is still good. Now, I have tested the petrol powered variant, the most powerful 160 horsepower before, and I have to say this one is more comfortable. That one was probably the RS line, and also maybe a stiffer, definitely it had to be a stiffer suspension, because it was incredibly bouncy on the road. It was like being driven on a bit of wood. So so yeah, this one is more compliant, still very stiff, but hang on, this, yeah, the lights weren't working there. It's a little bit softer on the rebound, but the stiffness of the chassis is still here. I mean, it's still, when you're driving over any compression or the bumps, you feel it very much, how the surface is. The good thing about it is the car doesn't move around, doesn't bounce after it. It's just stiff and controlled, and that's a good thing. And well, other advantages of the new Mitsubishi ASX being a Renault, well, it's definitely the infotainment. This Renault one connected with Google services is just great. I mean, it works flawlessly. It looks very nice as well, and also the driver's display ahead of you. These are all the quirks that you didn't have in the ASX, and that's why it's actually a good thing being a Mitsubishi now, or that Mitsubishi borrowed it. Let's just come to likes and dislikes. So the likes, I think the massive like is that the ASX is now being more technologically advanced. Renault has a really upped their game with technology over the recent years, and also from the driving perspective, it's not as soft as the ASX. It's much more controlled. It's much more of a driver's car. So these are the good aspects of it. And then you have this hybrid system, so Mitsubishi didn't have to develop their own one. Of course, they are in the alliance, but this one is working actually pretty good. Even when you put it in the sports mode, it actually also pulls quite nice. I'm not gonna, I mean, the engine is not worn out, but I can show you a little bit. Yeah, so this is definitely quite nice. 140 horsepower. Yeah, it's definitely all right. So yeah, but then the dislikes. Well, the dislikes are that it's not a truthful Mitsubishi, and everybody can see that. It doesn't have a four-wheel drive as the Mitsubishi sort of group of buyers will expect from their car, from their SUV. And towards the car itself and the hybrid system here, I have to say this hybrid system, it just doesn't work as good as the Toyota or Honda one. It keeps the engine running quite a lot, and then, as I said, the engine itself, it's not the most thermic efficient, it's not the most fuel efficient. So yeah, these would be maybe the small critiques to the car, but other than that, I mean, there isn't much reasoning to buy this as a Mitsubishi than just buying a Renault, other than that you're a huge fan of the brand. But if you are deciding, or if you maybe want to buy this car, well, let me tell you, it's a very decent package. It's a very good car to live with, either this hybrid or the petrol powered one. The only thing is that the petrol powered 160 horsepower one is a really stiff and rather uncomfortable car to drive on an everyday basis. So from that regard, I would advise you to buy this hybrid. Yeah, so that would be it to the Mitsubishi ASX hybrid. And well, more videos coming on very soon, and I hope to see you in the very next one. In the meantime, take care.